Mr. Speaker, the government has had 24 hours to get some basic facts about the PRC diplomats' targeting of MPs. So here's my question. On September 10th, 2019, the Public Safety Minister issued a directive to CSIS ordering the service to inform the Minister of any matter or action of interest to the Minister. When was the Public Safety Minister or his office first made aware that a PRC diplomat, Mr. Wei Zhou, was targeting me or my family?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Hello and welcome to Sami Parvez show. Chinese Communist regime threatened Conservative MP Michael Chong and his relatives in Hong Kong, and Trudeau government knew 2 years ago that a Chinese diplomat was working in Toronto consulate who was tasked to arrest Chong and his relatives in Hong Kong. Despite that, Trudeau did nothing. Is it just because Chong holds differing political viewpoints and sets opposite sides in the House from Liberals? Wouldn't Prime Minister has reacted if it happens with his caucus members? According to the Global Mail report on May 1st, China sees Canada as a high priority target and employs incentives and punishment as part of a vast influence network directed at legislators, business executives, and diaspora communities in this country. And the intelligence assessment claims threat actors almost certainly perceive their activities in Canada to be low risk and high reward. This should not happen in a democratic country like Canada. Government should do more on this, and there must not be only talks but actions. Watch this video where Conservative MP Michael Chong rises in the House of Commons for the first time since the news reported about his family threatened by Chinese Communist regime.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the government has had 24 hours to get some basic facts about the PRC diplomats' targeting of MPs. So here's my question. On September 10th, 2019, the Public Safety Minister issued a directive to CSIS ordering the service to inform the Minister of any matter or action of interest to the Minister. When was the Public Safety Minister or his office first made aware that a PRC diplomat, Mr. Wei Zhou, was targeting me or my family?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, since this is the first occasion in which the member for Wellington Halton Hills has raised since this matter was brought to the attention of the public and this chamber, I want to express solidarity to him and to his family, and that we will continue to work with him and all parliamentarians to make sure that he and all parliamentarians get the support that they need. Mr. Speaker, since the outset, when we took the reins of government, we have been vigilant in fighting against foreign interference. We have put in place the people, the resources, the tools, and the oversight, as the Prime Minister just said, to defend our institutions. We will do that work together.
Before we go to the next question, I want to remind honourable members that calling each other names is not parliamentary language. The honourable member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the directive of September 10th, 2019 is clear. It directs the service. It says that the service has a duty to inform the Minister of any such matter as is relevant to enable the Minister to fulfill the Minister's accountabilities as outlined in the CSIS Act. In general terms, the Minister expects to be consulted or informed regarding any action on which a deputy head would normally involve his or her minister. So my question again is very simple. When did the Public Safety Minister or his office first become aware that a PRC diplomat was targeting a member of this House and their family?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague across the aisle for highlighting the directives that this government has put in place to ensure transparency and accountability around decisions which are taken independently by our nonpartisan professional public servants when it comes to which classified information is made public and which must remain classified to protect people that work in that space. Mr. Speaker, this is not a partisan issue. We must all work together to defend the institutions, the communities, and most importantly, the parliamentarians who serve those institutions to protect our democracy.
If you protect these institutions and take these issues seriously, you would expel Chinese diplomat immediately. The Chinese diplomat was not expelled until Monday, May 8th, when House voted to expel the Chinese diplomat and where Liberal caucus voted against that motion. Now listen to this what Michael Chong said after it was reported on May 1st about his family being targeted by Chinese government and what government supposed to do.
Well, clearly the government knew, and clearly the government did nothing. It's dumbfounding that the Trudeau government knew almost 2 years ago that a diplomat accredited by the Trudeau government was working out of the St. George Street Consulate in Toronto, actively targeting MPs, including myself and their families, to try to change the debate going on in the House of Commons on foreign policy. It's dumbfounding that the government knew and didn't take action to expel this diplomat. It's clear this person is a diplomat in name only, and they're only a diplomat because the government of Canada has accredited them as such. This individual is clearly a foreign intelligence operative who's clearly been tasked with interfering and intimidating Canadians in our public debates.
Okay, so
I have always known, as have millions of Canadians from diaspora communities, that authoritarian states use pressure on family abroad to pressure Canadians here on Canadian soil. We've always known that. So out of an abundance of caution, I've not contacted my family in Hong Kong in the last several years. What I did not know was that there was a diplomat approved to work in Canada by the Trudeau government who was orchestrating these coercion operations out of the Toronto office. And that's what I didn't know. And when that information came to the attention of the Trudeau government almost 2 years ago, they should have taken immediate action to expel this diplomat. It crosses all sorts of lines that a diplomat would be engaged in that kind of work on Canadian soil.
Now listen, Michael Chong exchange with Foreign Minister Melanie Joly.
Mr. Chair, Minister, when did you first find out that a PRC diplomat was targeting me and my family?
I've learned it through the news.
Why is this diplomat still here?
So I knew you would be asking me this question because it's a valid question. And, you know, just to go back a second, I can only imagine the shock, the pain, the worry that you've gone through, dear Michael, due to the targeting of your family and loved ones. And so, as I mentioned earlier, on a personal level, and, you know, as Foreign Minister, I take this extremely seriously. You've asked me questions regarding foreign interference in the past. I've always said that, of course, we would never tolerate any. And second, we would make sure that, you know, if there was any violation of the Vienna Convention, we would take action.
Minister, Article 9 of the Vienna Convention is clear.
I will just, if I can.
I've heard your answer. It's
no, but I'm not finished.
Well, why is this diplomat still here? Article 9 of the Vienna Convention is clear. Article 9 says that the government can declare a diplomat persona non grata for no reason. The article is clear. So why is this diplomat still here? A diplomat who has more rights and immunities than the Canadians around this table to go around and conduct his foreign interference threat activities. He has diplomatic immunity. He cannot be criminally prosecuted. We all remember the case of the Russian diplomat who mowed down a Canadian citizen in a drunk driving case and killed her, and Minister Manley was unable to do anything about it. You have given accreditation to a diplomat here who is using his diplomatic immunity to target not just me and my family, but other members of Parliament. So why do you, Minister, continue to allow this diplomat to be accredited in this country on Canadian soil? That is the question. And you haven't answered the question.
Well, let me be able to answer the question. And of course, Michael, I understand your frustration and I understand your anger. So
we haven't expelled a single PRC diplomat.
Can I just
We are
finish?
one of the only democratic allies in the NATO alliance that has not expelled a single PRC diplomat. And Canadians are being targeted by the over 100 diplomats
Chong,
accredited
will you
here.
allow the
Yes.
minister to
Okay, thank
respond?
you. So, first and foremost, what we're doing right now as a government is we're assessing the consequences that will be facing in case of diplomatic expulsion, because there will be consequences. I think it's important that Canadians know what we've learned from the two Michael experience is that, of course, China and the PRC will take action. These interests, including economic interests, consular interests, and also diplomatic interests, will be
Minister, I can't think of any
affected,
interest.
and therefore, no,
Minister,
Michael, I just want to finish my answer because this is very important. It's about you, but it's about also the interests of the country. So, as we are assessing the interests, and I know that we are under pressure to go fast, we need to make sure as well that we protect our democracy. And that is why we will take action in light of the facts that are being presented regarding your case and, any MP that could be targeted. So that's why my deputy minister right now is meeting with the Chinese ambassador and summoning him. And that's why also we're assessing different options, including the expulsion of diplomats, because it is important that we take a decision.
Minister, just with respect to interests, economic and otherwise, I can't think of an interest more important to the Canadian state than the protection and the safety and the security of its own citizens here on Canadian soil.
And
that trumps all other interests.
I agree with you.
It is inexplicable that this diplomat hasn't been told to leave the country already. And I would hope that the deputy minister is informing the ambassador that this individual, Mr. Weijo, should be on the first plane out or declared persona non grata. And I think that that is the only course of action here, because if we do not take that course of action, Minister, we are basically putting up a giant billboard for all authoritarian states around the world that says we are open for foreign interference threat activities on Canadian soil, targeting Canadian citizens, and you can conduct these activities with zero consequences. And that's why this individual needs to be sent packing.
So
Mr. Chair, a question
and
about...
I share your concern regarding foreign interference. I share your concern regarding the message we would be sending. I think in order for this country to be safe and prosper, of course, democracy must be at our bedrock. That being said, we will take a decision thoughtfully. We will take a decision that will have the best interests of Canadians and our democracy in mind. But as I mentioned, all options are on the table. Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question about the intelligence assessment dated July 20th, 2021. Did your department receive this intelligence assessment?
I was not the Minister for Foreign Affairs. I
understand that, but I'm asking if your department received it.
Yes.
You were appointed minister on October 26th, several months later. I assume that your department received it. The Prime Minister indicated yesterday that that assessment never left CSIS. It seems inexplicable that it would not have left CSIS. CSIS doesn't produce intelligence products for its own consumption. It produces them for departments and central agencies.
Well, as you know, the Prime Minister
I am trying
has
to find
asked
out why that information never made it out of
Mr.
CSIS.
Chong, you're considerably
Michael,
over your
the
time
Minister
now.
has asked an investigation on this.
So-
You know that. You had many conversations with the Prime Minister himself about this issue. You've been briefed about this issue at least
Mr.
6
Chong,
times.
you're out of time.
So
I'd just
you've
like to
had
ask
access
Mr.
to that
Chong,
information.
you're a minute.
It does not make sense where Liberal minister put economic interest top of Canadian safety. I'm still curious to know that Does Prime Minister Justin Trudeau still admires Chinese basic dictatorship? As he said a decade ago that he admires China because of its dictatorship. Watch this video back in 2013 what he said.
The level of admiration I actually have for China. Because their basic dictatorship.
Trudeau talks a lot about diversity. Who said diversity is the source of our strength? In fact, Michael Chong considers himself a proud Asian, and who is the first Chinese descendant has been elected in Canadian Parliament. But still Trudeau turned a blind eye to the foreign influence where a Chinese descendant MP and his family were threatened by People's Republic of China. Chong has been a long critic of People's Republic of China poor human rights record. In February 2021, Chong sponsored a motion in the House of Commons to declare China's treatment of its Uyghur minority a genocide. The motion was passed unanimously with 266 votes in favor and 0 against of that motion, where Justin Trudeau and his cabinet minister abstained from voting on it. And also Trudeau did not call it genocide till the date. Here's what he said about declaring China's treatment of its minor population as a genocide.
China. We now have a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Olympics, the two Michaels, the crackdown on Hong Kong. The US and the UK think there's a genocide going on against the Uyghurs, the Muslim minority, as do the opposition parties.
As to the Parliament of Canada.
Do you believe there's a genocide?
I believe there needs to be a full investigation in it. I believe there are human rights violations that need to be exposed and accounted for, and we need to make sure that...
Is that a dodge, though?
No, it's not.
I only ask you that because it means that we need an investigation. China says, sorry, no one's getting an investigation, so it's paralysis.
But it's not,
where
because
the
we've
US
already...
has enough evidence and the UK has enough evidence.
We've already laid out very clearly the consequences for the human rights violations that are going on in China right now, and we're going to continue to act strongly on that. But the word genocide is such a significantly loaded word. We know there needs to be a proper investigation into these allegations of genocide. That's something that China needs to accept, and we're going to continue to increase pressure on them until they do.
The U.S.
Chong was sanctioned by People's Republic of China after passing the motion to declare treatment of Uyghur minority population as a genocide. He was only Canadian lawmaker who was sanctioned. Chong said he will wear China's sanction as a badge of honor. Whenever someone questions Justin Trudeau on Chinese communist regime, he considers it anti-Asian and racist remarks. Watch this Trudeau exchange with two Conservative MPs where Conservative MP questions him on Chinese communist regime and he calls it anti-Asian and racist remarks.
Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
The Prime Minister says that he takes these threats seriously, but he's not giving serious answers. He should be able to say that scientists that are sponsored by the Chinese military and the Chinese government will not be allowed in these facilities. So will the Prime Minister ditch the script and ditch the woke talking points and answer yes or no? Will he bar scientists that are sent here from the Chinese government and the Chinese military from accessing sensitive Canadian research facilities?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past number of years, we have taken significant steps to strengthen security around our sensitive institutions, particularly our universities and research facilities. We will continue to ensure that the work that is done there is protecting Canada's interests and Canadians in general. We will always ensure that we're working with our security agencies to keep Canadians safe, and we will not give in to pandering to anti-Asian racism. We've seen enough of a rise in intolerance across the country these past months. We need to continue to stand strong in supporting diversity.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, the Prime Minister says that he's working with our security agencies, but it's CSIS that called for the security clearances of these scientists to be revoked. This is not anything other than this government's failure to do its due diligence and protect Canadians from real threats of viruses that could wipe out an entire population. So will the Prime Minister tell Canadians why these scientists, who represent the highest risk to our national security, were given clearance to work in these labs? And what's he covering up? Why is he protecting them now?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
The two scientists in question are no longer employed by the Public Health Agency of Canada, and of course we cannot disclose additional information nor comment further for privacy reasons and confidentiality. We will continue to ensure that we are both welcoming of the international scientific community in advancing the knowledge that will help us understand not just this pandemic, but how to build a better future for everyone in Canada and around the world, while at the same time working with CSIS and our security agencies to keep Canadians safe, while at the same time standing strongly against intolerance.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
And the Prime Minister told us that they're partnering with universities. These are the same universities that are partnering with Huawei. Huawei that this Prime Minister, unlike all of the other Five Eyes nations, have banned. What is with this Prime Minister's admiration for the Chinese Communist Party, for their basic dictatorship, for their interest in our intellectual property? What is this Prime Minister trying to hide? Is it his connections with the Chinese Communist Party that has him again protecting these individuals?
Right, Honourable Prime Minister.
We will continue to ensure that our institutions and our networks are kept safe and secure. An examination of 5G technologies and review of security and economic considerations is ongoing. We will carefully weigh these matters with our allies and partners, and we will make the best decisions for Canadians. We will move forward and at the same time stand against anti-Asian racism, stand up for diversity, and stand against...
Well, the problem is, and the Prime Minister maybe does not realize this, is communist China cannot be trusted. I know he admires their basic dictatorship. I know he liked to do fundraisers with them over the years. I know he thought they were the first go-to for vaccines. But at this point, we would hope that he would learn a lesson and put the safety, security, and protection of Canadians above this fascination he has with the communist regime. So again, will he commit to ending this research and this cooperation with a regime that not only doesn't have our interest in mind, but actually wants to hurt Canada?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, from the beginning of my career onwards, I have worked with many Chinese Canadians and indeed had fundraisers with them. And the rise in anti-Asian racism we're seeing over the past number of months should be of concern to everyone. And I would recommend that the members of the Conservative Party, in their zeal to make personal attacks, not start to push too far into intolerance towards Canadians of diverse origins. We will continue to stand up to defend Canadians' interests, Canadian security. We will continue to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep Canadians safe while participating in the global research community and stand up for tolerance and diversity.
Mr. Trudeau asking a question on Chinese communist regime is not racism. Period. Full stop. China interfered last two federal elections and House of Commons passed a motion on March 23rd to call for a public inquiry into foreign interference. Unfortunately, as usual, Justin Trudeau shunned down the House request and named David Johnson as a special rapporteur to investigate China's meddling in Canadian elections. Johnson is former Governor General and board member of Trudeau Foundation. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau always loves to pay taxpayer dollar to his family and friends. The bottom line is Justin Trudeau does not deserve to be Prime Minister of Canada who can't dare to stand up for Canadians and their rights. It's about time Trudeau must resign and let someone else to lead this nation who has guts to stand up for Canadians and their rights and must ensure their safety and security. Thanks for your time.